All right, students, thank you for your patience. I still could not figure that problem out, but I fixed it in a different way. I plugged in a wireless keyboard that seems to be working just fine. So thank you for bearing with me. So again, getting back to what we we're talking about. So task 2 is a persuasive essay, and it's usually first or third person voice, but never second person. What do I mean by never second person? All right. So students, what do I mean when I say that the task 2 essay should never be second person voice? This is a very big mistake that many students make, and you should definitely pay attention to not make this mistake. If you make this mistake, your band score will definitely go down by 0.5 or even more. If you do not make this mistake, it will go up by 0.5 or more. So what is the mistake? What is this second person voice? That's right. Kishiji Kadam says using the words you or yours. What does it actually mean? Second person voice. So it means never use the words you, yours. Do not address your reader directly. Okay, that's what that means. You don't know who your reader is, okay? You don't know the person that's marking your task 2 essay. You don't know if it's a man or a woman, if they're 30 years old or 65 years old. So you cannot speak directly to them and give them advice or give them suggestions or a way to think. So you cannot use that voice, okay? You have to use first person, which is I, me, or my, or the third person, which is an objective voice. It does not use either I, me, or my. All right. Now, so first person persuasive essay. Now here's the question. Let's write this essay. Let's discuss which voice it is. Let's get going on this nice and quickly. All right. So let's read the question together. Parenting children changes with every generation. In what ways are child rearing different currently than in the past generation? Do you think these differences are positive or negative? Okay, so this question that I chose for you today, it's an open question. Open question means it can have many different kinds of answers. And you can see that here with in what ways, okay, are child rearing different currently than in the past generation, okay? So again, paraphrasing the question, make sure you understand it. And then do you think these differences are positive or negative? So this is the open part of the question, and this is the opinion part of the question, okay? Now, you have to answer these questions clearly in the body paragraphs. You might want to answer this in body paragraph 1, this one in 2, or you can structure it by giving 2 opinions here and then giving whether or not they're good or bad here and writing a body paragraph for each of those. I'll explain that in a minute, so don't freak out, okay, if that was a little bit fast. All right, so first of all, try to paraphrase this question. I'll do the same thing. So try to paraphrase the question so that you can make sure that it is clear and you understand it well. All right? All right. So let's see if anybody's managed to paraphrase that. This is how I paraphrased it to make sure that I understand it correctly. Here we go. The ways that fathers and mothers raise their children is different now than 30 years ago. How is this activity different now than before? Are these changes good or bad? Okay, so this is the same question that I just read up here. I just paraphrased it to collect good vocabulary for the essay and to make sure that I understand the question clearly. Jubilant James says, with advancing age and time, the ways of bringing up children is different now than before. Is this beneficial or not? Jubilant James, that's an excellent paraphrase as well. Baljit says, the ways children are taken care of is changing with the decades. What are the noticeable differences? Are these negative or positive? Very nice paraphrasing, Baljit. Excellent job. Practicing that paraphrasing has really brought you a long ways. Excellent. Good job. So now you need to think about the topic. And that's very important. It's a good skill to be able to identify the topic. The topic is parenting or raising children, or child rearing is another way to say it. Okay, that's the topic, and the controlling idea is now versus the past. And is it good or bad? All right. So that's the topic, that's the controlling idea. You should always practice being able to identify topics and controlling ideas very, very quickly. Okay? All right. So what is parenting? What is parenting? That's a great question. All right. So think about that. A lot of students just start writing, and that's not a good idea. You really need to think about your answer before you begin writing your essay. So what is parenting? Can somebody define or explain that for me? John PD, Josh, you've given me a great example of what not to do because you're jumping right into your essay, and it's kind of a weak way, an unclear way to start, that it's child parenting is a big business today because of busy lifestyles. It doesn't make much sense, okay? It's not a good way to start the essay, okay? What is parenting? So Harmeet says it's discipline. Shahid says raising children with social norms and values. Yep, those are some okay definitions. It's raising children, but what is it? What do we actually do? Agam says it's nourishing children. Okay. So it's a lot of different steps, but aside from the details, parenting, simply put, is parents raising their offspring for survival in the world, right? Okay, so I've given you a really long definition. You probably don't need to have this much detail for IELTS to get a good band. But hey, if you're looking for band 8 or band 9, you need to train yourself to think in this way, okay? So you really have to master thinking at this level, okay? Where basically you can quickly realize that parenting means to get children and offspring ready to survive and thrive in the world. And how do we do that? By giving them skills and thinking which give them the ability to succeed, okay? To feed themselves, clothe themselves, and be successful. And of course, throughout that process, we're feeding them and we're guiding them to be strong physically and mentally, okay? That's what parenting is. That's what good parents need to give to their children, okay? All right. So why? Why do we do that? So why do we parent? Why do we want our children to be successful and strong in the world? Okay. So why is that important? Why do we want that? Why do we want children to be strong? Well, obviously because they are the continuation of life. Okay, so they're the continuation of our life, the progression of our achievements, the hope for the future, right? Okay, and how do we parent? This is a very good question to ask for this essay. So, how do we parent? So Kun Kam says we give love and affection, so emotional support. Yeah, sure. Like love and sympathy, those are some big ones. Okay, Pushan says because they are the future stars. That's right, Pushan, that's what I just said, because they are the future hope, right? A lot of parents put a lot of hope in their children. How do we do it? We give them emotional support like love and sympathy. What else do we do? What else do we do? Okay, these are some very important questions, not just to get a good score on this task 2 essay, but generally speaking, it's good to talk about this. So, how do we do that? We share our experiences. Roshni says we share our experiences. Right? So we share the experiences which worked for us growing up, which were successful skills, and we try to teach them to avoid the strategies and the skills that were not so successful for us, right? We don't want to we don't want our children to smash their heads into the same kind of walls and obstacles that we smashed ourselves into. Although we see it happen, we really try to make sure that our children don't do that, right? So we do it through good education. Preeti Sina says, well, we try to give them good education, right? Okay, punishment as well. So we punish our children. If we see them doing something bad or something wrong, we have different kinds of punishment. Now, one that's changed from the past generation is physical punishment, right? We no longer hit our children like our parents, especially grandparents and our great-grandparents used to. We've realized that that's not a very effective way of parenting. So how do we do it? We learn from the mistakes of our own parents, right? So we look at what our parents did when they were bringing us up, and we think about that. We say, okay, what did my dad and mom do? And which were the techniques or strategies they used that I feel worked well growing up to parent me when I was a child? And what didn't work so well? What are the mistakes that my parents made which I don't want to repeat as a parent for my child, right? All right. Pachu is already answering the question, but we're going to get to the thesis, okay? So before that, the controlling idea. So how is parenting different today than before, and I see that there are a lot of answers already coming for this. So some student says, today, parents have less time for their children than before. Okay, sure, that's one difference. What is another? That's a difference of being a parent, okay? Students, when you're answering a task 2 question, be very careful to make sure that you're answering the question. So, parenting children changes with every generation. In what ways is child rearing, means parenting, different? This question is not asking you in what ways is being a parent different, okay? In what ways is being a parent different? It's that we have less time, right? But what is the actual difference in the way we raise our children? So this first point that a couple of you made, it's a bit of a different idea. It's talking about what is different about being a parent, not about what is different in parenting. So Marasa says now parents spend less time with children. Again, that's not okay. That's okay, Marasa, but it's not really a difference in parenting. Okay, we could say that. It's still the same as before. All right, what else is different in parenting, okay? Okay, sending them to more school. That's the more important point here, and I see somebody got to that very clever point. Therefore, when do a lot of children start school these days? And I know we're going into a lot of planning, and you don't necessarily have time in the IELTS to do this much planning before you start writing. But in your head, you should have a lot of these good ideas coming before you begin writing so that you can create a really good essay. All right? So starting school early. How early? When do students? Yeah, so Pranay says at 3 years. In most countries, students now start at 3 years age. Okay, good. That's the more important point. Okay, so John Paul says spanking children or physically punishing children used to be a parenting style before, but it's not anymore. So spanking or physical punishment used to be implemented, but not anymore. Sure. Okay, so what do we do these days? So what do parents do these days instead of physical punishment? Okay. Thank you, Rena. So what do we do? Marcella says parents are more permissive. Okay, sure. And the parents these days, what they do is they often will remove privileges from children as a form of punishment. So they don't let them use their cell phone or the internet, or they don't let them go out with their friends. They ground them. So they use different forms of punishment. Absolutely. Okay, good. So now in the real IELTS, what you really want to do, what you really want to get to is this level of thinking. Okay, and you're going to say, hey, Adrian, maybe you're a little bit crazy. It's very difficult to do this. But honestly, if you want to get a band 7.5 or even a 7 or an 8 especially, or a 9, you really have to be able to do this in the first 3-4 minutes of IELTS Task 2. You should be able to, number one, read the question. Parenting children changes with every generation. In what ways is child rearing different currently than in the past generations? Do you think these are positive or negative? Paraphrase, you're writing this down, okay, on your paper. The ways that fathers and mothers raise their children is different now than 30 years ago. How is this activity different than before? Are these changes good or bad? All right, I'm clearly writing a persuasive essay. This is asking directly for my opinion, so it's a first-person essay using I, me, my. It's an opinion essay. What is parenting? It's raising children to be successful in the world. Why? Because they're the continuation and hope for the future. How? By sharing skills and thinking that work in society that give them an advantage, a competitive advantage. How is it different? It's different in two ways. Parents spend less time with their children, so they send them to school at an earlier age, and they use different forms of punishment. Okay, is this good or bad? Well, the first part is arguably good and bad, and the second part is definitely good. So now I can write my thesis. My thesis is parenting has changed much over the past few decades. These days, parents send children to school earlier and punish them to educate. Okay, so something like that, all right? So write your thesis. Thesis has to be parallel form. A good thesis will make your essay. A bad thesis will break your essay. I just did that very fast because I want you to see how you can go through those steps in 3-4 minutes. And if you look at the time when I started that, it was about 3 or 4 minutes. Now, yes, it demands a high level of thinking, a high level of English, but this is what is required in university abroad, and that's why IELTS demands this level of ability to get those band 7, 8, 9s. And yes, you can do this, okay? You can do this, all right? Baljeet, that's probably too much of a detail, okay? Even without the 1,000 question marks, I'll catch what you're writing, but I think that's too much of a detail. I wouldn't go off on such a detail, all right? Health monitoring could be a part of it, but I think it's maybe not what 9 out of 10 people would say, so I wouldn't go down that path. Okay. And maybe I would do this a little bit different. So these days, parents school children earlier, so I would use it differently, and punish children differently. Now here, I did my thesis as a multi-sentence thesis, okay? If you can't do it as one sentence, that's absolutely okay, all right? Write your thesis as 2 or 3 sentences, short sentences. The most important is that it's a clear, direct thesis, okay? You really need a clear, direct thesis. So parenting has changed much over the past few decades. These days, parents school children earlier and punish them differently. I believe these are both positive changes in child rearing, all right? If you have this thesis, you can write a great task 2, and you will do very, very well. Too many students, and I really wanted to emphasize this for you today, too many students write poor indirect thesis statements like okay. This is a bad thesis. All right. I really want all of our viewers who are watching now and who will watch this video later when it's up on the channel. I really want you to realize that this is not a good thesis, especially for a short 250, 300 word essay. Why? Anybody know why this is a bad thesis? Okay. Why is this not a good thesis for an essay? So why does this not work well? Why do you not get a high band score for this? Why is there a good chance you're going to get a band 5, 5.5? If you have really good, clear writing, you might get a 6.5 or a 7 with this thesis, but that's about it. It's going to be hard to get a high thesis. And I know a lot of you have learned that this is an okay way to finish your IELTS introductory paragraph for task 2, but it's not a good way. Anybody know why? What's wrong with this? Okay, Roisin says, well, it's not direct. You're not actually saying what you're going to write about. Patricio says, because there's no information being added here. There's no new information. Yeah, absolutely. There's no, exactly. Harmeet says there's no point to the reader. Baljit says it's completely unnecessary. Absolutely. If this is not in the essay has not lost any information. So this has zero value to your reader. Okay, this is giving them zero extra information. The fact that you're going to discuss negatives and positives of different changes in parenting is understood because that's what the question is asking you. Okay, the question is clearly asking you that. So here it says, what are the changes and are these good or bad? So I know that your essay is answering this question. If it's not answering the question, then you're completely wrong anyways. So this kind of a thesis is completely wrong. Okay, remember that. So wrong. All right, this is a wrong thesis. Don't do this, please. All right. So your thesis has to be, if you take nothing more from this lesson, and I promise you, for all of you who are watching this, when you write a direct thesis, okay, this is called a direct thesis because it's directly telling your reader, this is my point 1, this is my point 2, this is my idea, this is what you're going to read. So it's a direct thesis. When you write a direct thesis, your IELTS band score will go up. I promise you that. If you change just this one point in the way that you write your introduction, I guarantee that your IELTS band score will improve by 0.5. All right? It will go up by 0.5. So make sure to write a direct thesis. Okay, now we can write the introduction. And here, I'm just going to start writing a little bit now, students, to give you this full example so you can really feel how an essay can evolve when you have good planning and good information. So first you write a hook. The hook is a simple, clear, clean sentence that is about the topic, which here is parenting, to catch your reader. One of the most important skills for all people is effective parenting. There you go. So that is a clear, quick, clean thesis. One of the most important skills for all people is effective parenting. Mothers and fathers strive hard. So now I'm writing the background, which is the definition and the importance. Okay, so the background is a couple of sentences that explains the definition of what we're discussing here and the importance of this. So mothers and fathers for centuries have strived to implement the best form of parenting possible so that their children can survive and thrive in the world. After all, children are the hope of the future that carry forward the accomplishments of humanity. Okay, so you're going, oh, Adrian, you probably practiced this essay before or something to write like that, right? No, I am writing this essay for the very first time. I am thinking about these ideas for the very first time. Why am I able to think about these ideas? Now, you're thinking, oh, because you don't have a problem with English. Sure, that's fine. Let's forget about English for a second. Just imagine that you're writing this essay in your own language, okay? So separate the skill of English from the skill of writing and literature, all right? It's very important to do that. So here, don't worry about the English. If you write the same information as what I wrote here with simple English, you can still get a band 7.5 or 8. No problem. All right, no problem. So good information in some ways on IELTS is more important than good English. Okay, I say that carefully, but there's a lot of truth to that. All right, if you have a very well structured, informative essay using simple English, you can still get a very good band score. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, keep that in mind. So here we go. One of the most important skills for all people is effective parenting. Mothers and fathers for centuries have strived to implement the best form of parenting possible so that their children can survive and thrive in the world. After all, children are the hope of the future that carry forward the accomplishments of humanity. All right, now all I do is I simply just take my thesis statement, not the bad one, but the good one. And this is all I need to take here. And then just copy paste it. So of course in the real IELTS you're writing by hand, so you can't just copy paste. That's why you can write your thesis statement a little bit down. So these days, parents school children earlier and punish them differently than a generation ago. Little adjusting here. And join my sentences, and I believe these are both positive changes in child rearing. So there you go. That is a Band 8, Band 9 introduction to this question for IELTS Task 2. And you can write this extremely fast, okay? Murasa, children are not the backbone of parents. Parents are the backbones of children. That would make more sense, all right? So this is my thesis statement here. With this clear thesis, it is very easy now for me to write a strong body paragraph. Here we go with body 1. Okay, so body 1, all I'm doing is I'm expanding on point number 1. These days, parents school children earlier So that's what I'm writing about. These days, parents school children earlier. This is body paragraph 1, and body paragraph 2 has punished them differently. Okay? So body paragraph 1, in the 80s and 90s, children began school at age 5 or 6. But these days, it is common around the world for kids to begin school at the age of 3. There are two, okay, so that's my topic sentence. So this first sentence is my topic sentence. My topic sentence, okay, now body 1, this information I'm just writing for your learning, so don't include that in IELTS. You're just writing the text. In the 80s and 90s, children began school at age 5 or 6, but these days it is common around the world for kids to begin school at the age of 3. Now I need to explain this, right? And explaining is my reasons. And for a lot of students who are joining right now, you're going, wow, Adrian, what are you doing? How are you doing that? So how are you actually writing these ideas so quickly? Well, don't forget that we did that planning, okay? So we did the what, the why about parenting, and about the controlling idea of how it's different. Okay, so here's the controlling idea and how it's different, past versus present. So I did that planning. If in the official IELTS, I don't do that on paper, but in my brain, that's still great. Okay, and then here, I can just move along really nicely so I can focus on my English and not have to worry too much about the information because the information is already all up in here from that planning stage. So here's my explanation. Parents these days are often very busy with work, so they can provide food and shelter for their family. Also, there is great competition among people as there are more individuals there is a greater global population than ever before. For these two reasons, children need to begin their education as soon as possible. So parents have time for work and children can get a competitive edge. For instance, okay, so now here I'm giving the example, all right? So I've given the explanation and now I give an example. For instance, my nephew is already in second year preschool, and he can count and read at the age of 4. All right, now don't forget to answer the full question. All right, the full question is asking, do you think this is positive or negative? And you can go off and start talking about, well, it's negative because parents should spend time with their children and so on. But remember, it's IELTS. You need about 300 words. You don't need 500 words. You don't need to explain everything under the sun. So stay focused. Here, it's easier just to stick with the positive. Forget about the negative. complete the 300-word essay, do a great job, get a band 8, get a band 9, okay? So here we go. For instance, my nephew is already in second year preschool and he can count and read at the age of 4. Although this may seem extreme, I believe it is a... Okay, here we go. Just let me get you back on camera here. Give me 1 second. So I'm completing my thesis argument here that it's a positive. Okay. And of course, I'm going to just say that it's a positive because children are smarter than ever before, and they need to be so that they can fix the serious problems of the planet. So although this may seem extreme, I believe it is a positive change from the past generations' parenting, because children are smarter, are relatively smarter these days, or relatively smarter now than ever before. And this is needed to solve major world problems of the future, like pollution. Okay? So just quickly explaining there that yes, it is a good change that even though parents don't spend as much time with their children, the parenting style changing, that we're sending kids to school at an early age, is great. Why? Because children are smarter now than ever before. They're thinking faster. They're thinking better than past generations. And they need this because they have problems to solve that are so major, that are so extreme, that the survival of the human race will depend on it. And yes, it is good that they're becoming that smart. Okay? All right. And now I can write a connecting or a concluding sentence. This is one of two. And this is my connecting or concluding sentence. Connection. And students, I know that I'm reading less of your comments right now, and I'm moving along faster. But the reason why is because I'm trying to prove a point here for you. I'm trying to prove the point that if you have good planning, if you understand the structure of task 2, if you know what you're going to write, then you can write very quickly, and 40 minutes is lots of time to get a good essay finished. Okay, that's my point here. That's my goal that I'm showing you with today's lesson. So this is one of two major ways that child rearing has altered from the past. Okay, now body 2, jumping right into it, topic, sentence, and connection. Another way that parenting has evolved from 30 years ago is the form of, or forms of punishment used. All right? Not so long ago, the previous generation spanked or physically punished children to deter them from or wrongdoings. All right? So not so long ago, the previous generation spanked or physically punished children to deter them from wrongdoings. However, these days, physically punishing one's kids is not only thought to be ineffective, but it is also a criminal offense in many parts of the world. Okay, so here we go. That's my explanation these days. Parents prefer to punish their kids verbally and by removing privileges. Okay, so that is my explanation. For instance, when my nephew pushes my niece or uses a swear word, his parents take away TV time for a week. Okay, so there's my example coming in right now. So that example backs up my explanation. Again, I feel, here's me finishing this idea. Again, I feel that this is a positive change for child rearing, as it has better results for kids' confidence and mental fortitude as they become adults. Okay, so again, answering that, is this a positive or is it a negative? It's really important that you completely answer the question. To get that task completion mark, you have to completely answer the questions, and you have to reach the 250 word minimum. Okay, now all I have left is my conclusion. In my conclusion, all I need to do is restate my points, confirm my argument, and give a take-home message. All right, so conclusion paragraph, here we go. First one is restate points. Okay, so clearly parenting styles have changed in recent times with different forms of punishment and schooling. I certainly feel that these changes are for the better. In the end, it is the goal of society to become the best parents possible. Okay, so that's my take-home message. Okay, so I just did that again very, very clearly. I probably only took about a minute to write that full conclusion, because what I'm trying to show you is that when you have the right ideas and you know what you're doing, you can write very, very quickly and effectively, all right? Even if you don't have the same vocabulary that I have, even if you don't know as much grammar, knowing what to write and how to write it is extremely important for success on the IELTS. So let's read and review this, students, okay? Let's read and review this so that you get the complete picture. Before we read the answer to the essay, let's look at the question just one more time to make sure that we're on track and we're answering correctly. So this is the question here. Parenting children changes with every generation. In what ways are child rearing different currently than in the past generations? Do you think these differences are positive or negative? Okay, and then here's our planning. This is what I used to be able to write quickly and effectively. Here's my introduction. One of the most important skills for all people is effective parenting. Mothers and fathers for centuries have strived to implement the best form of parenting possible so that their children can survive and thrive in the world. After all, children are the hope of the future that carry forward the accomplishments of humanity. These days, parents school children earlier and punish them differently than a generation ago, and I believe these are both positive changes in child rearing. In the 80s and 90s, children began school at age 5 or 6, but these days it is common around the world for kids to begin school at the age of 3. Parents these days are often very busy with work, so they can provide food and shelter for their family. Also, there's great competition among people as there's a greater global population than ever before. For these two reasons, children need to begin their education as soon as possible, so parents have time for work and children can get a competitive edge. For instance, my nephew is already in second year preschool and he can count and read at the age of 4. Although this may seem extreme, I believe it is a positive change from the past generation's parenting because children are relatively smarter now than before, and this is needed to solve major world problems of the future, like pollution. This is one of the two major ways that child rearing has altered from the past. Another way that parenting has evolved from 30 years ago is the forms of punishment used. Not so long ago, the previous generation spanked or physically punished children to deter them from wrongdoings. However, these days, physically punishing one's kids is not only thought to be ineffective, but it is also a criminal offense in many parts of the world. These days, parents prefer to punish their kids verbally and by removing privileges. For instance, when my nephew pushes my niece or uses a swear word, his parents take away TV time for a week. Again, I feel this is a positive change for child rearing as it has better results for kids' confidence and mental fortitude as they become adults. Clearly, parent styles have changed in recent times with different forms of punishment and schooling. I certainly feel that these changes are for the better. In the end, it is the goal of society to become the best parents possible. Okay? I will check how many words that is in 2 seconds here. So that is about 400 words. Okay, Patricia says about 453 words. It's not. It's about 400 words. But that's a Band 9 essay, and if I take away all my talking and instruction time, I wrote that in probably about 15, 20 minutes, okay? So just so you get an idea of what level a person can write an English essay at, a native speaker at a college university level can write an essay like this in 15 to 20 minutes, no problem, okay, with very little planning. So 40 minutes and to write 300 words of a similar or slightly lower quality to get a band 7.5 is not impossible. You can definitely do it, okay? It's within your ability. You just need to practice. Baljit says, 400 words is not possible for most of us. No problem, Baljit. I don't expect you to do 400 words, and IELTS doesn't expect you to do 400 words. You can take out pieces of this essay. You can cut out extra sentences. You just need about 300 words. It doesn't have to have perfect grammar. It doesn't have to have all this vocabulary. Just something slightly lower is fine, and you'll still get 7.58, okay? And Shakita says, cool bananas, and I say cool bananas to you as well. Absolutely, that's what you need to do, all right? So again, ladies and gents, any questions about today's class? I know I went very quickly, and I wasn't looking at your comments too much today because I wanted to show you the speed at which you can write an essay when you know what you're doing, okay? So do you have any questions about this writing or about task 2? Now's your chance. Now's your chance to ask me. Keith says, do you have a PDF of this lesson? Keith, this is an absolute first-time original lesson. It is not pre-planned. It is purely using strategies that we've tested and we know with original materials. So all we have for this lesson is this lesson in video format, and you can watch it on the YouTube channel about an hour after this live stream is done. Boring says, any tips for the conclusion, please? You need to have your points restated. You need to emphasize your argument, Boring. So what is your opinion? And give a message that is connected to your essay that's clearly visible from your essay. Anurag says it's a 250-word essay, not more than 350 words, also negative. It never says no more than 350 words. I've never seen IELTS instructions say no more than 350 words. Okay. Shanu says, can I rewrite this essay again? Absolutely, Shanu. If you want to rewrite this essay in your own words and send it to me for feedback, please do it. Yeah, absolutely. Look at the question again, put my example to the side, and go again from yourself, okay? Harmeet says, can we write parsley? I'm not sure what you mean by can you write parsley. Yes, Kesra, and the idea wasn't here to show off, and to be perfectly honest with you, Kesra, I could write this even much, much faster. I just have to make sure that I don't lose the students while I'm writing. The idea of this was to show you that to do 250 to 300 or 320 words is not impossible. You don't need amazing English. You just need to have a good idea of what the essay is, what the structure is, what information you're putting into it, okay? Anurag is asking, how many words is ideal for a band 9? A band 9 does have to be a well-developed essay, Anurag, so I would say that a band 9 essay is going to be 320 to 350 words to be on the safe side. So if I want to, see a really nice band 9 essay, it's going to be a really well-developed 320, 330, 40, 50 word essay. Okay, so you're going to be about 30% above the minimum, so that you can really clearly explain your ideas, back them up with some really good examples. Roshni, there's a really good blog on our website for different types of Task 2 essays. I really suggest reading that to get a good idea of what to do for different kinds of Task 2 essays. Chunu says, how do I judge an open question? Chunu, an open question is something that's asking like a what, why, how that you can give a lot of different answers to. So a closed question, Chunu, is where you choose between two options. Like some people prefer to drive their cars to work. Other people prefer to ride their bikes. Which one do you think is better and why? So the which one do you think is better is a closed question because you have to choose one of the two. Okay? An open question would be like, what type of transportation is most ideal? That's an open question, Shinu, because you can choose airplane, train, bus, subway, car, bike, walking. Okay? Harmeet is asking, how do you think of an effective hook? Okay, Harmeet, think about the topic. So here, think about parenting, okay, because parenting was the topic. So to come up with the hook, think about the idea of parenting. And then think about, well, what is interesting about parenting? So what is a global fact? So what is a fact that everybody will agree with, which is kind of interesting? Well, definitely most people will agree with the idea that being a good parent is one of the skills that most people want to achieve. Okay? So that would be a good hook. All right? Marasa, same question. Open and closed essay. Open essay is asking what opinion that you can give a lot of ideas for. So here it says, in what ways is child rearing different? This is an open question because you can give this many different answers. So there are many ways that raising children today is different than in the past. For instance, one we didn't talk about is just the amounts of goods and services that we purchase for our children, okay? With today's generation, children are showered with toys and games and clothes. We have a lot more abundance of goods. So parents spend much more on their children with objects and with services than in the past. So there are a lot of different answers that we can give. You just have to choose two that are very clear and effective. That's why it's an open question, all right? Okay, you should not be spending 10 minutes on your hook. I spent 10 minutes writing 2 body paragraphs and my conclusion, so you should not be spending that much time. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is everything for today. Again, remember to get lots of explanations and examples for Task 2 essays, as well as lots of help with the IELTS. Please do visit us at gieltshelp.com for general IELTS, aehelp.com for academic IELTS, and I wish all of you good studies. Feel free to rewrite this essay with your own words. Send it to my email, and I will give you a score estimate, adrian@aehelp.com. Good studies to all of you. See you for tomorrow's class, which will be, which will be a speaking part 2, practice, explanation, and strategy. Much love to all of you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a good night's sleep if it's late in your country, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.